may be seated. I don't know, had you ever heard that song before? I couldn't tell that you had, so I'll have to send that to you guys. Boy, we used to love to sing that song. And I don't know if you're familiar with Brooklyn Tabernacle, but I've never been to New York, but if I ever go to New York, I'm going to Brooklyn Tabernacle. They have a tremendous choir. They don't do a Wednesday service. They do a Tuesday prayer service. Jim Cymbala. Maybe you've heard of Jim Cymbala. Maybe some of you have been there. I don't know. You can read some of his books. Fresh Wind. You want to read a book? Fresh Wind, Fresh Fire. Read that book. Great book. But Jim Cymbala, the music director there, they have a Tuesday night prayer service. They pray for an hour and a half, and then they come and they sing songs, they sing praise songs for another hour and a half until everybody's done, until they're finished. I'm telling you what, it'd be a great thing. You're ever in New York, check them out. I'm sure their Sunday service is just as phenomenal as well. That's Brooklyn Tabernacle. You got your Bible with you? Turn to Genesis chapter 6. In the first 4 verses of Genesis chapter 6, you come to some of the more difficult verses in all of the Bible, especially the Old Testament. So what are these verses? Well, you can read those. You can scan through those verses as we're making our way there. But you come to the issue. You come to the issue of who were the sons of God, and who did they marry by saying the daughters of men? Who were the sons of God that married the daughters of men? Now, opinions on this are scattered. There's usually 2 groups, a couple of groups that are more prominent than others about what the split is and what they say these 2 groups were. But what you need to know, especially for today, is that Moses is coming in and he's saying these are demonic days that they lived in. The days of Noah were demonic. Verse 5 really sums it all up. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So that kind of sums it up. Man's thoughts were on wickedness. Now, what is it? What it is this group. This group of people, really just about everybody in society and creation except Noah, has come together. This group, these people have come together. Their thoughts are on wickedness. They've come together with the actual intent of rebelling against God. Now, did you wake up this morning, or you want to wake up in the morning with the intention of rebelling against God? That is demonic days. Noah lived in those days. It's mentioned 4 other times in the Bible about these kinds of intentions. It happens here with Noah. It happens a little bit after the flood at Babel, the Tower of Babel, the gate of God, they called it, with Nimrod, the political authority of the day. And there's always a false religion that is in concert with the government in these rebellions, in these days. They're always working together to rebel against God. So you have the days of Noah, you have the Tower of Babel, you see a false religion, you see the government and false religion rebelling against God in Revelation chapter 17 as well, and it's ushered in with the Antichrist. And the other time you see that the government and a false religion working together is at the time of the Jews and the Gentiles, and when they come together to crucify Jesus Christ. So you have 4 times here. We're talking about one when man literally wakes up in the morning, all times, even in the evening, with the intent of rebelling against God. So that is the setting for Noah's day. Now look at chapter 6, still in verse 5. What's it say there? It says, the Lord saw their wickedness, every intent of their thoughts were on their heart. It speaks of a total rebellion in man's heart. If that's the inside of the man, if that's his inner being, then what in the world does the outside of the man look like? If that's his heart, what does the flesh look like? Well, verse 12 will tell us. God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. When man is in rebellion, he corrupts everything. He ruins it. He makes it rotten, because anything clean is a conviction upon sinful man. So what's he want to do? He wants to drag it down with him. He wants to corrupt it. He wants to make it just as rotten and as rebellious as he is, because if it is truth, if it is biblical, if it is conviction upon the way he lives his life, that he wants to ruin it. He does not want that against him. He doesn't want that conviction. So verse 13, God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence. It's filled with rage. It's filled with hatred. The earth is filled with this because of them. And behold, I am about to destroy them with the earth. So man, what has man done? Man has just given in. Man has given in to his desires, his animal instinct. That's what's happened. There's been this rebellion. There's been this wickedness. Just give in to your animal instinct. Darwin said, at best, you are an animal. That's what he says about you. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, he hated Christianity. He hated morality. He said, give in to your animal instincts. That's what he taught. That's what he said. And do you know who his disciple was? His disciple was Adolf Hitler. Hitler takes what Nietzsche says and he expounds on it. He takes it even further. That's what happens. You give in to one thing over here, you submit to one thing over there, you make concessions for one thing after another, and the next thing you know, you are far, far, far away from the truth. You are far away from where you started. One man, like a Nietzsche, says one thing, and yet his disciple comes along and he moves it even further to an extermination, to an annihilation. But God has a plan. God has a plan, and what does he do? He calls Noah. In Genesis 5, just back a page probably, Genesis 5, chapter 5, verse 28 and 29. We've already looked at these a couple of times, but 28, Lamech lived 182 years and became the father of a son. Now he calls his name Noah, saying, this one will give us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands, arising from the ground which the Lord has cursed. Now who was Noah's? Noah's grandfather is Enoch. And if you look at Noah's family tree, if you look at Noah's forefathers, they all have a common theme attached to their name. They were all looking for a deliverer. They were looking for the Redeemer to come and deliver them. But they all have a unique characteristic about themselves, about their family. And what was it? Their family trait was they walked with God. It was said about his father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather. It is what they passed down to their children. Now let me ask you, what are you passing down to your children? What are you passing down to your grandchildren? Can that be said about you? Is that your family tree? Is that your trait? You walked with God. If your children or your grandchildren, or somebody was asking you, what is a characteristic about this person? What's going to be the first thing? Were they God-fearing? Were they God-loving? Did they walk with God in their daily routine, their daily life? How do we walk with God? What are you teaching your children? Are you teaching your children to be able to study the Word? Are you teaching your children to how to read the Word of God? Are you teaching your children something else? Are you teaching your children how to defend their faith? Or are you going to leave it up to the school and the university to just devour them and eat them up? Because they will. You're not sure about that? I'll give you a couple examples. We have been doing this study of Genesis. I've enjoyed it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I tell you what, I woke up Tuesday morning, 4 o'clock, and you just got to hate this. When you wake up early, I woke up at 4 o'clock, and your mind's already running. Your mind's already working. There's no going back to sleep. What am I doing? God had me up debating Brenna's science teacher. Because since Christmas, she's been teaching evolution. It's a little extended time, a little too long. And for some reason, God got me up, and I'm thinking of all these things in my head. I'm processing all of this information, all this stuff that you've been taught, that we've been taught together on Sunday mornings and Sunday nights. And I'm thinking, I've got to go to this lady, I've got to talk to her, and probably someday I will, because I would like for her to give me the opportunity to just take one class period and show them the other side, talk to them about the other side. I would like for her to try to poke holes in what I've been learning, because I feel pretty good. I feel really good about what I know. It's just a matter of if I can remember it all when I'm talking to her. That's the only problem. But they have been put Brenna's science class, like I said, since Christmas. So for months now, they have been studying this. Not really, I'm not sure that she believes in creation. I believe she does believe in evolution. But Brenna had Brenna not been here on Sunday nights, had we not been studying this along, her faith would be much weaker than what it is. If this had taken place at the beginning of the school year, she would have, well, my parents have taught me that evolution is not correct, that God created. She would have known that, but that would have been the extent of what she knew. And if you're leaving it up to the school or the university to teach them, they are going to thrash what you have taught your children and reteach them. Evolution has to be taught because it's not natural. That's why they spend billions of dollars on it. The government is invested and vested in teaching this. And it's in your school. It's way in Murray State University, and many of you probably graduated from there. It's there because those people are coming out of that university. My children may go there. I'm not trying to be ugly to them. People are coming out of that university and teaching in your elementary, middle, and high school. So that's how we know it's in that university. But had this went on at the beginning of the school year, Brenna would not had a foundation that she could stand up against the teacher, that she could, I don't know that she's ever said anything to the teacher. I've given her a lot of stuff to say, simple things, basic things to say, but when they're in a small group doing a small project and they're having to defend something, she's able to do it to her peers. She's able to stand up to her peers. So if you're going to leave it up to the school to teach your children, they're probably going to teach them something vastly different than what you would expect. So what are you teaching your children? I'd like to tell you what Michaela was learning is being taught as well, but I'm not. Society wants you. Now stay with me. Society wants you to check out of being involved in your children's life, your children's education, your children's upbringing. Society had rather you just check out. Society had rather you just hand a young lady, a young girl, a birth control packet than to teach them abstinence and to wait for the one that God has for them. That's what your children are learning. Well, I'll stop right there because it's a little quiet. I had some more stuff, but you're too quiet for this. So all of Noah's forefathers are labeled. Their trait is walked with God. What are you passing down to your children, to those that come after you? They're looking forward. They're looking toward the deliverer. They're looking forward to the Redeemer. They're looking forward to the one that will bring them rest. So Noah comes. His name is Rest. Now, do you know what else is unique about this? Noah is a type of Christ. You see that all through the Old Testament. But Noah is a type of Christ in his day and time. The ark is a type of cross. Noah is a type of Christ. His name is Rest. What did Jesus say for all those who are weary? Come to me and I will give you rest. Rest. It's not a coincidence, folks. The rest that they were looking for back in Noah's day, Jesus talks about, I am that rest. He is that rest. So Noah now comes. Still in verse 29 of chapter 5. They call him Noah, saying, this is the one who will give us rest. He will break the curse. He will break the curse that has come up from the ground, that we have to toil over the ground. They were longing for a Redeemer. They were longing for a deliverer. They thought maybe through Noah's life, he will be the one. Well, they had conqueror in their line. Lamech, I think, was his name. They have Noah now with rest. Methuselah, when he dies, judgment. They just named them one right after the other because they were looking for the Savior to come to deliver them. Their family trait was walking with God. It was that important. So God had a call on Noah's life. God also poured out grace on Noah's life. Back in chapter 6, verse 6 now. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Now there was a pain. Now we think, is God just this stoic God? Is God just this stone cold, mean guy that sits there and he's just got this gloomy look on his face? Well, right here, it grieves God's heart. Sin breaks God's heart. The sin that you're involved in, have been, will be, I am, it breaks His heart when we sin. But God is not an emotional wreck either. Do not think that about God. He's not an emotional mess, but He does express emotion. Now look at verse 7. The Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to the birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I have made them. Now, some people say, well, how come God doesn't just zap man? He could do that if He wanted to. How come God doesn't just zap man and leave all the birds and the animals and the fish and the creepy things and all those little creatures, the little fuzzy bunnies and the little precious little squirrels and the koala bears and things like that? Why doesn't He just leave those nice little things alone? Why has He got to kill them too? Man's sin has affected all of creation. Because of the sin of Adam and Eve, creation is falling, and it has touched every corner, every bit of creation. The animals didn't do anything, but sin has impacted them as well. Each one of us is in need of a Redeemer. As you said here this morning, your only hope is a Redeemer. Verse 8. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Favor. He found grace in the eyes of the Lord. It was not something Noah earned. It was because Noah believed in God. Verse 9. These are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. How wicked were the days of Noah? Evil, demonic. That's what we started out with. That's what Noah shows, or Moses as he's writing this. That's what it shows here. In that time, the sons of God and the daughters of man, it was demonic days is what it was. But even in wicked days, Noah is righteous. He's an upright. He's blameless. He overcomes temptation. Even in a selfish, agenda-driven, Hollywood award show bashing, say what you want, don't care about anything else world, Noah lived a life. He said, I'm going to live above all of that trash and garbage that society promotes and throws at us. His desire was to be pleasing to God. Noah, for 120 years, Noah was preaching. Noah was living. He was desiring a righteous life. But in today's day, when you share about morals, values, biblical worldview, you are looked at as some kind of weird cartoon character. What used to be, if you had values, if you had biblical morals about your life, what used to be the norm, you would be respected. You are now looked at as a freak show. Today, you are looked at as being intolerant when you say, only the Bible is truth, has values, has morals. When you live a life that is God-centered, when you live a life that is trying to be righteous, when you live a life where you are trying to walk with God, none of us are perfect. I'm not, you're not. There's nobody else that's ever walked the earth outside of Christ that is perfect, that's been able to do it. But when you live a life today, when you try to live a life for God in righteousness, to walk with God, you will be labeled as a freak, as an intolerant hater to the rest of society. Can you handle the label? Now see, you get a bad name if you label people today, don't you? It's not good to label people today. But you can be labeled. Are you willing to carry that label? Are you willing to carry a label as one that walks with God? Can you carry the burden? It's not going to be easy. It won't be fun. It'll be more than just visiting a building once a week. It should be a lifestyle. How we conduct our character. It drives our character. Walking with God. In the 1800s, under Queen Victoria, it was said that the sun never set on the British Empire. They had colonies under their control all over the world. The Union Jack flag flew on all those colonies, and the sun literally never set. There was always one colony that the sun was shining upon during the day. Well, the British Army sent a group of forces out to the Congo jungle one time. There were two barbaric tribes, uncivilized tribes warring out with each other. They were cannibals. They were in battle, so the British Army sent a group of men out there to bring some stability to the region, to really control the region, to take it over. Once this regiment had got in there and established control, got a little foothold in there, they began to set up a security perimeter. They began to secure the place, the area. They began to set up a little tent village for themselves. They began to set up camp. Well, the British commanders, upon hearing that there was some stability, they wanted to come in and check it out. These generals, these commanders, they come in there. They walk into the camp. They see all of these little tents set up that were for the troops, and they see this one large tent set up, and they said, well, this must be for the guy in charge over here. This must be for our man that's leading the group right here. So they walk up to his tent. And when they walk into his tent, they're astounded at what they see in there. Inside his tent is a huge dining banquet table. It is set up to the T. It is set up with opulence. It has crystal glassware. It has polished silverware. It has fine china. Everything is laid out perfectly. They see the commander walk in, and he is in full dress uniform. These guys visiting the camp, they look at one another and they think, this guy's been in the jungle too long. He's gone mad. He's gone crazy out here. So he invites them in. He invites them in, sets them down, and he tells them, he begins to explain to them why he does this. He says, I do this once a week. He says, I set up the table this way. He says, I dress in my finest dress uniform that I have. He says, I do this to remind myself that I belong to a different kingdom while living in an area of uncivilization, while living in an area with cannibals. He said, I do this to remind myself that this is not where I belong, that I belong to something greater. I belong to something far better than what I see, than what my surroundings are around me. It's important to attend church. It's important to attend Sunday school. It's important to read the Word, the Bible, through the week. Why? Because you need a reminder daily that this is not your home. You belong to a different kingdom. And no matter how this world treats you, this is not your final resting place. This is not all that there is for you. There is something so much better for you when you have committed your life to Jesus Christ. You serve a King of Kings and a Lord of Lords who will one day not only rule over heaven, but He will rule over this earth as well. But until that day cometh, are you willing to be labeled? Are you willing to wear that label as one who walks with God? It's tough. It's hard. Do you need to be reminded? Be reminded by being regular in attendance, by being regular in the reading of the Word. Because in the Word of God, in the Bible, you will find out who you really are and how God sees you. You are not some accident that took place. You are not something that walked out of a pond somewhere. You are not what society might leave you to think you are. Just because you may not have what other people have does not mean you are any less than. Are you able to wear that label? The label that says you walk with God, that you're going to teach your children values, morals. your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. This is not our home. We're really just passing through. God has an eternity. There is an eternity that awaits you. Do you know where your home is? Do you know where your eternity is? You guys are regular. Every Sunday you're here. So I'm assuming your eternity's secure. Do you have a neighbor? You got a family member? Maybe you want to pray for them this morning. I want to ask you to bow your head. We're going to sing a song. As we always do, it's an invitation song. Maybe you want to come and pray for somebody. Maybe you want to pray for that person